And thank you for joining us here on PM Express. Tonight we are looking into the crystal ball to what Ghana might be in the next world up to 2057. Let's look at what the National Development Planning Commission has been doing, the manifestos versus the National Development Plan. Why are we putting this up tonight? Remember, we are in a context, this is during the context of an electioneering season where all the political parties are putting up their plan for the next 4 years at least. Now the Ndpc has just launched the Ghana at 100 document, right? This is a very important document that we're going to go through for you. This is the appropriate time to look at this document, which has just been launched, by the way, just in the last 1 hour or so. But there are some very fascinating things in this document that we must interrogate and see how it meets the reality of what we know as far as the parties are concerned. What do we know? This particular document, the Ghana at 100 document, has been designed to guide the next government that wins the December 7 election. This is going to be a tough ask because if government, the parties are already putting up their manifestos already, but this is not coming late in the day when they've already done that and are selling the manifestos quite aggressively. But this document is designed to guide them into the next 4 years. But what happens to their manifestos that they say will guide their existence as government if they win? I mean, this is something that has to be juggled quite carefully. But it also catalogs the strategic needs of Ghanaians, which is also key. Remember what the parties have been saying, especially on this program, on Manifesto Tracker. They say their manifestos reflect the needs of the people. Well, the Ndpc says they've also done same in putting together this document. What does the document say? Now, I am going to shock you with a few things that the document is saying, and you should grab a copy and read it. It's on the Ndpc website. I just grabbed the copy just a few minutes back and put it up here for you, just a summary of some of the key things. They have a vision of Ghana that is democratic, inclusive, self-reliant, developed country by 2057. Self-reliant. Like we don't rely on anybody for anything. This is Ghana beyond aid actualized, inclusive, democratic, 2057. Now, it even gets even more exciting and juicy. A country of high income per capita of not less than $50,000. You know where we are currently? We are in the thousands, into just a little bit that, in the 2,000s or so per capita. But this is where the Ndpc envisioning will be by 2057. Is it utopia you're seeing there? Well, we interrogate how they plan to get us there. But this is even more interesting. Nominal GDP of approximately 3.4 trillion. We are in the billions now, and just a little under 70 billion if you consider what the key issues are in the budget and elsewhere. We are 3.4 trillion going into 2057. That at least is what the envisioning will be, where we'll be by that time. Again, the envisioning that Ghana will be resilient, service-oriented, and circle this for me, industrialized, right? This is a key word there. I mean, no country developed without first being industrialized, and they expect that will be there. Globally competitive, not continentally, globally competitive economy as well. We are playing the big leagues by that time. We should be in the first world, I guess, by 2057. Efficient, affordable, equitable, first class. This is all that you see when you go to London, when you go to the USA. This is where the envision in Ghana will be by 2057. Social services at all levels. First class social services at all levels. Water, electricity, name it, roads, all of them, first class. So the road that leaves your home that you complain about by 2057 should be replaced with a first class service. Now, low levels of unemployment, underemployment with decent work, opportunities for all. You shouldn't come out of school and struggle to get into a job. This is what the Ndpc is envisioning, and this is a document they have put together, doing some great work. How do they do it? We understand gathered information spanning approximately 4 years. So this is thorough work that they've done. This is not somebody sitting in his room and conjuring stuff and dreaming what will be. This is hard work they've put in to sort of envision where we'll be. And they subjected this to some real technical discussions before they put in the document that we're going to be discussing tonight, which has just been launched. But there's a problem. There's a problem. As they say, the devil is always in the detail. It is non-binding on any of the governments. You know, you cannot hold any government and say you must necessarily let it guide you. It's non-binding. That's a key problem. The second problem is it competes directly with the political party manifestos. And this is where it gets interesting. Remember that you're going to be voting for the parties based on their manifestos. That is the primary document that they are selling to you, based on which they hope you vote for them. Not this. So the parties are going to be, as expected, more attached to the manifestos than this. How is the Ndpc going to solve that particular conundrum? We'll try and get to the bottom of that. Now, the Ndpc plans to get parliamentary approval for this. The document will be employed as a tool of accountability and assessment of performance by the ruling government, whoever wins 2021. The Ndpc will also provide a report on what the government has done in a year. So this is good, right? Because governments need to be tracked. But the key question to ask is, but can the Ghana at 100 plan ever compete with the political party manifestos? That is one, I guess, is a key thing. And I wonder to what extent did they involve the parties in drafting this? Stay with me. We're going to look into the crystal ball, Ghana 2057. And everything that you've seen here tonight, we're going to be discussing it with my guests after this break. Don't go anywhere. Thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. My guest in the studio is Dr. Kojo Mensah Abrampa, who is the Director General of the Ndpc. He's joined by Dr. William Ahaji of the NDC, representative on the Development Planning Committee, is it?
You're the one that wrote the 40-year development plan.
Okay, great. I mean, but now you play a different role with the NDC.
Yeah, well, I'm the Director of the Ghana Institute of Social Democracy.
Okay, great. And you were Director of Research for the party?
That was the Director of Research.
Yes.
Immediate past Director of Research.
Great, okay. And we tried without success to get somebody from the MPP into the conversation, because the key thing about this document is, you know, it's the parties that form the government. So you want to see what their thinking is on this all-important issue, as the Ndpc now has launched and outdoored this document tonight. This must have been, what, an hour or two ago?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is really fresh. Yes, and Doc, let me start with you, because I pulled up the document on your website, and thanks for making it available so quickly. And I was reading it, and I kept on saying, goodness me, this is utopia. You paint a picture of a nice utopia, flowing milk and honey, $50,000 per capita, 3.4 trillion GDP, a country where everything is first class. I'm imagining skyscrapers, streets, and you don't have much. People struggle to believe that. I mean, people look at our current circumstances and say, how on earth can any Ghanaian say that we can ever get here? What do you say to those who hear you tonight and say that is simply not possible?
No, it's a reality, and you can make a very good judgment if you can think about where we were in 1992 and where we are now. It gives you an idea of the kind of journey that we can make within this period of time up to in 2057. We've gone through real technical analysis. We've looked at our resource potential. We've looked at the human potential that we have. We've looked at the pace of our development. And we think that consistently, if we are to employ all these skills, all this knowledge, all this ability, all these resources that we have, and with the required leadership that we can display as Ghanaians, that we have seen through the period of 92 to now, we should be able to come to that. And if you look at even our own figures, where we were just some few years ago before 1992, and where we are now, it tells you. At first, we're counting per capita income in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Today, we're talking about 1,500 and plus. And this is a huge jump. If you multiply that in terms of percentages. It tells you the speed with which we can move on. And the good thing is that development multiplies. It accumulates in what we call it's a trick. It doesn't just add on. So once we're able to make that point, and then the breakthrough at a given point will move on, especially if we're able to build the human capacity requirement, which is very, very important.
So you're talking about education?
Yes, not only education, health, the other things which goes with the skills and all those things. So it's not just one part. But if you're able to get all those parts correct related to human capacity, it gives us a huge stride. And there's so much history to guide us, such that a lot of those risks that many countries went through, we should be able to anticipate and be able to resolve that before we get to that point. The implication is that it should be much more easier because many countries have gone through the threat. For some of them, they even came to Ghana to study from us, and they've been able to make it. So how much more ourselves, if we turn around and take advantage of all these that we have, resources, physical, human, and all those, we can make it. And the figures are there. It's not just, if you look at, this is a summary of the document, which we want to use it to interact with citizens. But the bigger volume, which has all those projections and arithmetics and all those drawings and other scientific thing that goes with it, is also there for technical use.
Yeah, let me bring in Dr. Haji. I'll come back to you to go to this, drill down to the specific. Your reaction to this? It's been coming for a while.
Yeah, I'm quite glad, and I'm very excited that eventually they've launched the National Development Plan. Well, in our time, it was a 40-year development framework, but, well, at least it's now rechristened Ghana at 100. So that's fine. It's virtually consistent with what we have been saying all the time. We are happy that it's been launched because unfortunately, the other political party, particularly the NPP, isn't here, but are drawing their attention to the fact that initially when they came, they said it wasn't worth planning for 40 years. And so that was thrown away, and they came up with the Ghana Beyond Aid, etc. But I'm happy that we've come back to this exercise of planning the development path of this country. It is so critical, it's so important that I believe that when we were doing the introductions, you raised an issue about whether it will be made non-binding, it will be made binding on political parties or not. It's one of the debates that we've held over time. And I'm very, very excited to hear that the debate has come up again, and perhaps those who resisted the fact that we wanted to make it binding will now support the idea that it has to be binding. So it serves as a framework for the development of manifestos.
I mean, it's good that you brought up this binding matter. I'm going to devote time to talk about that particular conundrum in this country. But let's drill down some of the facts. How did the Ndpc arrive at these bold targets?
Let me say that this has been a document which has gone through a series of years of political seeking knowledge from people, their participation way back to the local level, civil society and all that. When the document came out with a huge amount of data analysis and proposals. And that is one part. The second part is to look at it and say, what do we want to do with this? Is it just a prescriptive solutions to the problem that we have, or creating alternatives for which can lead us to the long term? If you make prescription, you are restricting people in terms of changes in each situation. When you make it quite an array of alternatives in dealing with the problems, and then you give the opportunity for alternative to be assessed at any given situation, which brings about continuity. We can do cost-benefit analysis, you can do a test on feasibility, validity. All these things are things that we do in order to make choices. That will make it more flexible. So we went through that in the document. We also brought in certain elements which are current, which has to do, for example, one of the key areas which we expanded is to look at the whole thing of going beyond aid. Okay, and then bring it back into this document and treat it.
So okay. I see a line there, self-reliant.
Yes, exactly. So we're really thinking about, if we want to do it, how do we do it? What are the areas that we need to look at? What are the priorities that we need to focus on in order to move it?
Who did we consult? How broad was the consultation?
It was a whole national consultation, which was done some 4 years ago. started, and it's gone through the whole process.
So this must have been the Professor Butchie, Nimoy Thompson.
Yes, that whole range of that. And then when in 2017 we did a whole dissemination, I took a team around the country led by the Minister for Planning himself. We went to practically every region, met a number of people just to confirm and just to make sure that what we've captured hasn't changed over the period, over a time. Because over time, situations might change. Exactly. And we got all these things confirmed consistently, some changes here and there, in order to get this affirmed. And then when this document was eventually prepared and the new commission looked at it, its consistency in terms of what we have done, its application, and then looking at the figure to satisfy themselves. So then we have this document done. How do you bring it to the public in that huge volume? No. I wonder how many people would like to read 500-page document.
It is? Is it 500 pages?
Yes. And even more, because we had to divide them into certain phases. Some looking at infrastructure, housing, health, education. All these areas are treated different. Energy. So it's parts of details. And putting together a summary of also a volume, and then bringing it down to a volume which we can use to interact with the public, which can spell out the defined areas of goals, defined areas of target, and defined areas particularly to create hope for people that we can do it. And these are the specific figures that we pulled out from the big document, sum it up, had a very good encouraging acknowledgement and summary, and also put it in the way that it has a national representation. So if you look at the document, the first page, for instance, presents the pictures of all the head of states of since 1992, the Republic, the Fourth Republic, giving an indication of acknowledgement of all the work that everybody has done, contributing to a foundation being laid for us to go forward towards the Ghana when we'll be.
Were the political parties directly consulted?
All of them at the time.
Okay.
And then consistently now, as Dr. Hiaji is saying, sometimes it's the nomenclature. Because immediately you say a plan, in our constitution, it has a legal implication. If you have a plan, and the plan has a certain characteristics, a plan also means that it's a document that changing it requires going through a legal process and sometimes legislative process. But if it's a perspective, then it gives an indication, it's more of an indicative direction. It's more of a direction that we are all pursuing, and therefore within it, it gives a range of alternatives within which you can change. Okay, without necessarily going back to undertake that whole process. So this is the difference. Some of the argument which came up the first time it was presented.
So I take it then that the document that you launched tonight, it's a collection of the hopes and aspirations of Ghanaians.
Exactly.
This is what we want. We told you we want to get to.
Exactly.
By
not me, but the whole discussion of the whole
everybody. So the political parties, individuals, length and breadth of the country say
this is the expression.
By 2057.
57, yes.
So between now and then is how many years for 40?
37.
It's now 37.
So now 37. So we have 37 years more to achieve that.
Exactly.
People will say they want to have a per capita income of $50,000 equivalent.
Well, it's possible, because if you look at where we started, at the target, the base figures, just 3 years ago, and you look at it beyond that, it was very, very encouraging before the COVID came in. But even that, it still gives hope that given what we did in the 3 years, moving from the baseline to where we got to, and even those figures show, we can really go that way if it's consistent. And that is very, very important.
Dr. Haji, so the parties were consulted, and from what he said, the NDC definitely must have been consulted, and you were there as well for quite a while. There should then be no problem taking this as the political party, I guess, taking this as a blueprint.
There ordinarily shouldn't be a problem.
I'm hearing a bat. So.
Yeah, if you secure the buy-in of all the political parties in even reviewing the document. I don't recall, perhaps it happened, I don't recall, because I was part of the group that went around the country to put it together, but I don't recall being invited to join the review discussions. And so for me, it came as a surprise to me that it was going to be launched, because for all we knew, it had been thrown out. And there was this political statement that we don't need a 40-year development. We didn't even call it a plan. We called it a framework, like he's saying It's a perspective. It's a framework. So you can pick out those sections. But development problems, typically in our context, do not change. They are quite known. We need additional health facilities. We need to increase our human resource capacities. We need to build roads. We need to build all those other things that we needed to do, housing. And therefore, in any case, that's what you find in the manifestos. But they are more output-oriented rather than outcome-based. And so that's the difference. Because we want, within 4 years, we want to do A, B, C, and D. And then we probably have bought our ticket for the next round. But otherwise, if it's a perspective, if it's a framework, you then can pick your issues, then the development is a continuum. One government goes away, the other one continues that process. I just read today, that between Denmark and Germany, they're going to build a tunnel under, and so just like the tunnel or tunnel between UK and France. And they're looking at a 20-year perspective. They started 2008, and they hope to complete it in 10 years. That's the kind of thing we should do. But we haven't been doing it. And if Ndpc now strengthened and is capable of securing the political parties to commit to doing these things, then Ghana is...
But here's the problem. The political parties, at least for the next 4 years, they've already put out their manifestos. Well, as we've seen, at least for this government, as a good friend of mine, Professor Ndpc Prempe, has said, has become a government by manifesto, purely. And this government had stayed true. They wanted to check the list. We said we'll do this back then because that's what you voted us for. We'll do it. And we've seen how manifestos become so important this year, more than any other year before. And yet this is coming post the manifesto launch already. Dead on arrival.
No,
you seriously think the NDC in 2021, if they win, will go and look for this document?
You see, there's a constitutional provision that within the first 2 years of assumption of office, the president has to submit his development plan.
Does that ever happen?
Coordinated program. The coordinated program. It does? It does happen. You take your policies.
Sorry, so is this, which one is this? This is, whose is this?
This is the current government. And I have a collection all the way to 1992. All of them.
So this document, so this is the current government's, the Coordinated Program of Economic and Social Development Policies of 2017 to 2024. But that is beyond his...
we usually do that. For planning, you do in such a way that you can roll.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so that's the point.
This is news to me, really. No. I mean,
we've had it since 1992. All of them are there. I have the whole pack.
So when they come to government, then they draft this development
it's a constitutional requirement, 36(5). That as soon as you're elected a president, within the first 2 years, you should come out with this document. And I can tell you from Vision 2020 to Ghana poverty reduction process to shared growth agenda, and then to the agenda for jobs, and we've had that consistency.
So they do this,
yes.
But then, what's the reality? So this is the document.
Yes.
But what does the reality say? Do they implement this in their forte?
What we do is that this is the document, the vision of the president, expressed in the plan, and then implemented. And every year we produce a report on what the president has done, or the government has done with respect to this plan. So every year we produce a report.
You do?
The report is sent to Parliament.
Really?
Yes. The report is sent to Parliament. You check on our website, you find all these reports
and
there.
Which Parliament? This is the same Parliament?
Yeah, the same Parliament.
I'm surprised because I've done this job for 16 years. Yes. And I'm hearing that this goes to Parliament. Parliament debates it?
Yeah, Parliament debates it. And there's a whole committee which does it.
And approves it.
Comes out with a report to indicate the areas of gaps and all those things. So
but if I'm hearing it for the first time, there must be a problem with that ideal and the reality.
Well, you asked a question, and I was just going to answer that by saying that in preparing this as a constitutional injunction, you would have to then pick up the plan, your manifesto. I recall in 2008, Professor Mills put us in a hotel and said, look at all the documents. We have a manifesto, but look at all those, every other party's document. Incidentally, when we did that, the MPP came out shouting that we didn't have any ideas. That's why we were doing that. But it was just so we could put together all the expectations that are contained in all the documents, and then prepare a coordinated government policy that could be used. That opportunity still exists, and therefore, even though political parties are done with their manifestos and there's a framework, a perspective plan available, there's still that opportunity to coordinate, at least to prepare a coordinated plan based on all of these documents, because public expenditure is driven by what you produce as your coordinated plan. And therefore, yes, you have to go back to Parliament to report. Yes, manifestos, they are a statement of your intentions to win power. And therefore, sometimes, as you can see, some of the promises are way out of this world. And indeed, you can do a couple of them. And if they are not consistent, if they cannot be carried by the public budget and you don't do it, you can advance all the excuses that you can, that it was, this other factor. But if it is an injunction on you, a constitutional requirement, you have to do that because your public budget will be driven by what you put there as the Constitution requires. So those are issues that we want to talk about when we say that, well, a coordinated plan or a perspective plan is the driver of your public expenditure.
Okay, so let's talk about the reality. So what you have articulated is what the constituency should do. And I mean, the parties have a way of checking that list. We've done it. Taken to Parliament, approved. But in reality, in the last 4 years, I haven't heard any government official reference this document you just showed.
No, they do it. A lot.
Really? Where?
It's the same process.
The only thing I heard a reference, I'm sorry, but it is their manifesto.
If you see, if you're talking as a politician, you talk about your manifesto, but the manifesto has a place in the plan. As I said, it's the same.
I've heard the president talk a lot in the last 4 years.
It has a place in
about
the
what they're doing. He's never mentioned my coordinated program of economic and social development.
If the manifesto is not expressed in the plan to have a budget, it cannot be implemented. So the program begins with the manifesto, whatever it is, must have a place in the plan. As I said, consistently. In 2017 is the same thing. March, we were also in a hotel to prepare this document. We brought the manifesto, the SDG, the current development situation. We brought all together to produce this.
Because the formality of doing this and meeting the constitution has to be fulfilled.
Once it is done, you have a plan. It is a plan which goes to ministries, which goes to the district, for all of them to prepare their strategies. And this is what pulls together, expressed financially, to get you the budget. So if the manifesto doesn't have a place in the plan, it doesn't have a resource, because the resource is the budget. Once the budget goes to Parliament, it's approved, then it's implemented.
Next question. I mean, if that is the case, why are we not hearing the parties make reference to this as they sell their manifestos?
No, because I'm selling myself as a party. The plan belongs to everybody in the country. There's a political competition. What do I sell? The common document or my document? Because it's marketing. So if I'm marketing myself, do I sell the common document or a document which is mine but has a place in the common document?
Or at least you make a commitment to say, this is my plan, but I'm willing to situate it when I win in the broader plan.
Do you have to say that? Because that is a no. Okay. You are enjoined by the Constitution to do that, and that is done.
There is my question. There is my question. Yes. It's about fulfilling the constitutional formality.
Yes, once you put it there, then you are moving to the budget. If you don't fulfill that, if you don't get your manifesto expressed as a vision and to the plan and to the budget, it cannot be implemented.
It cannot be implemented?
No, you can't.
It's the budget that is implemented.
Yes, but the plan...
You're saying the budget is drawn from the plan?
Exactly.
I'm a bit surprised because I haven't had any finance minister go to Parliament and reference any of these documents.
No, they do it. Look at the budget. Look at the budget. That's the first chapter talks about this. The implementation of the coordinated program, Agenda for Jobs. You've heard it several times.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but...
Exactly. So this is it. That is where it takes it from.
But they reference the constitutional injunction to present a budget.
Yes.
That's that line. It's normally they'll quote you the constitution that says the budget has to be presented such a date.
And they begin from the 36.5, which enjoins them to provide this, which is approved by Parliament before the budget.
Okay.
So the parliament looks at the budget in conjunction to this. And when you go and the budget committee is grilling you, they look at the plan. This is what you said you were going to do. And where is it in your budget? So it's a real grilling. If you go to the finance committee, they're grilling you, they look at all these relationships.
I mean, Dr. Haji, so I guess that has been the bigger problem, right? I mean, so the bigger problem is we have this, we don't want to call it a plan, call it a framework that the parties will have to play with. And now it's been launched. To be very realistic, you expect whoever wins, there's a constitutional injunction, but this is the document that has been planned, that the parties, Ndpc, would let us guide it.
Yeah,
together with this manifesto.
Yeah, as I said from the beginning.
What would take precedent? This or the manifesto?
Well, you see, if you're talking about infrastructure, we say in the NDC, we say the big push. We're going to spend about $10 billion on the big push. Now, that's going to be drawn from the public budget. But the link between that and the public budget will be the coordinated plan that we are going to convert all of it. Manifesto promises as broad statements. You have to convert that into policy statement that can then be applied.
And implemented.
Yeah, and implemented. So there's that link that has to be done. But as you're saying, we initiated the process on August 4th, 2014. It was launched at a big thing in I think, the International Conference Center about the 40-year development framework. Now, so we have a history of wanting to plan up to 2057. Now, MPP has joined that process. I believe that this is...
It's not MPP, it's Ndpc.
Okay.
We're talking about Ghana.
I want to assume that...
But I guess he says that...
What else is talking about?
I mean, he says that because it's happening within the setting.
What I'm saying is that there's a bilateral... well, I don't know whether it's going to be bipartisan acceptance of the fact that there must be a development plan to guide the way we travel from one point in time to the other. Because otherwise, somebody stands up and says, I'm going to put up a hanging train, and then it doesn't happen, and nobody holds anybody accountable. Annual progress report is prepared every year on government programs. Every year, the Ndpc does that. And
that tells us the progress the government is making.
Yeah, on every aspect of all the programs that the government is pursuing. And so every government is bound to do that anyway. And now that our other colleagues have joined, you see, the politics is different from the technical aspect of the work. And that's where it comes from. And I understand that.
Unfortunately, we live in a country where the politics supersedes the technical.
Well, but you see, it's not moving as
well, there's interfaces, but there's a superior master there.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Who is the politics?
It's not pushing us at the rate at which we should go.
But that wouldn't change.
It has to
even
change.
In the face of this.
There's a constitutional provision, the directive principles of state politics require that a continuation of a program.
Anytime I hear the directive principles of state policy, it frustrates me.
No, but there's an issue
because it's not justiciable anywhere.
Well, to some extent, you can't raise an issue around it. That's why we are debating the issue about whether we make the policy framework binding or not. Then the issue about justiciability comes up. Yeah. Otherwise, if we leave it this way, all the objectives and the goals that we set for ourselves will be, I mean, we were supposed to be middle income, lower middle income, we should be moving to, higher middle income. It's a process. We need to walk ourselves through it. The only way we can walk ourselves through it is to use the word to work according to the blueprint. As a country, not as political parties.
Yeah, I mean, well, there is that and there's a reality.
Well, I want to seem to be convinced that the reality cannot change.
I guess you make projections based on analysis of history.
Yeah.
Our history has told us that the two main political parties, the NDC and the MPP, just seem to like the politics more because that is where they can appeal to most people. This sounds great, but it's so futuristic. And it possibly is the reason why NDC and people was telling you when you started a 40-year development plan that we have an 8-year mandate at best.
We are not on the same platform. We are not on the same.
No,
this is 2020. We had a vision 2020. Can you imagine what would have happened?
That we missed by a country mile.
Can you imagine what would have happened if we had tried to implement that?
Yeah.
You see, we didn't. We lost that opportunity. And then we had all the world telling us you have to follow the SDGs, you have to do all of these things. And we're so religious in implementing the SDGs. But they were not driven by our own expectations. They were something that the world thought, and they were just strategic things. But we're looking at comprehensive development. And that's why we need the development policy framework.
I mean, Doc, I'm going to come back to you. I want to take a break. When I return, I'll talk about how do you make this move from the paper to the reality? Because that's the key thing. I mean, the conversation about making it binding or not will come up. But I also want to pick out some of the few exciting, juicy bits of this vision. And that's the hard question. And that's the hard question. How do you make that into reality? Because I really want that. Trust me, if I read this to my 7-year-old son, he will dream of London and Dubai. But how do we get there? Have the Ndpc figured out, and what is the roadmap specifically year on year to 2057? Stay with me. Thank you very much for joining us. A very fascinating conversation, and it always is when you dream big, right? The thing about dreaming is it makes you forget about your current reality for a while.
It's true.
And then you sort of go into a space of joy and excitement until you come crashing down. Then you realize you're probably back in the space you were. But Doc, let me come back to you on the question about making this binding. Which has been the biggest conversation since 1992 with the Ndpc's plans that we've talked about since then. How are you approaching this differently?
What we have done, you see, planning is a dialogue. It's a process of dialogue. It's very, very important because we have people, we have the government which is elected by the people, and they have a certain responsibility. The National Development Planning Commission is it's an institution which has been established by the Constitution and supposed to advise the government, which is supposed to deliver to the people. And that is our role. So whatever we've done over here as a long-term plan is a perspective plan. But when it goes to the medium term, as soon as the medium-term plan is developed, it goes to Parliament for approval and it's binding. The medium-term plan is binding. It's a legal document approved by Parliament. And
okay, define binding.
I
want to define binding.
Binding means that legally, if you deviate from the plan, Parliament can hold you responsible. And when Parliament is holding you responsible, citizens are going to hold you responsible.
But it never do.
It does.
Parliament never does.
It does. You see, since
1992, you're saying that no government has deviated from their plan.
They do.
Yeah, but the Parliament never has held them.
No, it does that. And it has its own strengths.
In 1992, no government has had a minority in Parliament. They've always had a majority.
No, they have the majority, but even with the majority, if you don't deliver, they have a way of doing that. One of it, and it's very interesting, Parliament has a legal and then a fiduciary power. So if they cut your budget, it's an indication that you are not delivering.
Never done that before.
They do that for various sectors.
You mean for the various ministries and agencies that go to
so that is it. If this sector is delivering, they have more resources. If you're not delivering, your resources go down.
You think that the approval of the budget is dependent on who is delivering?
Your delivering is very, very important because that indicates if you have a priority and you are not delivering on it.
I have to put it to you that isn't the reality.
It does.
Because it's the government of the day that decides who gets what.
It does.
And the members of Parliament, the majority, just play the line.
No. It doesn't happen that way.
If the government comes and says, I want to put most of my money in education, that happens.
No, you have to justify it. You have to if they give the resources to you and you don't deliver and you go to Parliament, the finance committee will really squeeze you. And when it gets to the floor of that
finance committee, chaired by the majority, whose party is in power, who squeeze the finance minister.
Exactly.
That never happens.
Not the finance minister, but the minister who is responsible for that very sector. Whoever
that minister is appointed by the president, who wields that cane over everybody in Parliament because it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Dr. Haji, I mean, am I being a pessimist, a skeptic, or a realist?
Well, you're not any of those.
That's interesting.
I believe I'm being a realist.
But you know, like he's saying,
Yeah.
When you're going to defend your budget,
Yes.
you sit before the Finance Committee of Parliament. Of course, the ranking member is in the opposition. And so they can grill you. And if perhaps when they read the budget, let's come back and do a budget analysis and look at the trends of public expenditure, and then you see the pattern.
Yes, you see.
If you don't deliver on that one, it drops from the budget. It happens, but we just don't see it. But it does happen. Well, sometimes government can be very tiring, particularly the executive can be very, very overbearing on Parliament.
But they get what they want.
Not
always get
not
what
all
they
the
want.
time.
In this country.
Not all the time. That's why some ministries, development.
Okay, most often than not, they do get what they want.
MDAs struggle.
Yeah.
Some MDAs struggle.
Yeah.
That's the reason. That's what happens. That's the reality. So it's not a given that once you submit your budget, because your government is in power,
So, I mean, true.
it's going to be approved.
True.
Yeah.
But at large, they get what they want.
To a large extent, yes. To a large extent, yes. But it has to be consistent with.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an accountability mechanism.
Exactly.
You have to report back to Parliament, and the Auditor General would have to report how you spend the public funds given to you. And those ones can be factors in being granted the next round of expenditure, your budget. It works quietly, but we don't typically see it.
Yeah.
That's why I say that we do the politics, we do the propaganda, we do the advocacy bigger than when we do the technical work. And those are things that we have to look at.
I mean, so Doug, let's go to some of the specifics. Let's start with the nominal GDP, approximately 3.4 trillion US dollars, and a per capita GDP of not less than 50,000 USD equivalent. I mean, to put it in context, currently our GDP is just under 70 billion. True?
More than that. Where
are we?
Nominal GDP?
Nominal. Well, where are we nominal?
You see, let me give just figure. It's very interesting when they say that our total revenue is about 16% of our GDP, and that revenue is around 50 billion. So that is 16%.
Yeah.
That tells you that the nominal GDP is about 300 billion. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so if, I mean, so even if it's 300 billion.
Yeah. So what we're saying is that.
Doctor, do you agree?
Well, I haven't crunched the figures lately, so
that's that's a huge leap from 50, 60 thereabout to 300
When
billion.
is it 50, 60 is revenue?
Yeah.
Usually that figure is our revenue generated, and usually you can do that from GRA or any of that. But our whole nominal GDP is bigger than what is collected as
granted that it's 300 billion.
It's
right?
300,
but it's 3.4 trillion. It's
so and these are figures. And these are gone with other factors.
Yeah.
Let me give you a clue. 2025, the target is to double this figure. Okay, to about 625. That's what's in this document. Okay. If we're able to achieve that, and we go by the consistent growth rate that we're talking about, the average of 7% or 5%, we said even beyond 2000, we're going very fast during between 2022 to 2025. We'll be able to attain 600 billion. If we go consistently by 5% up to 2057, we'll be able to clock that mark of 3.4 trillion.
Okay, but the reality is, if you look at the last few years, we haven't grown consistently by that.
We've done that.
By 5%?
Yes.
Consistently?
More than that.
Consistently?
More than, you see, by 2017, it was 8.
I mean, year on year, you're talking averagely.
8.5 growth rate. Yeah. 8.5. And from there up to 2019, the average was 7% growth rate. The hit was with COVID. Had it not been for COVID, we would definitely have gone to 7.1%. And that is for 4 years. If we're able to do that for 4 years, and consistently we're able to do that to 2025 as targeted, if you even go around 6.8 average, we'll be able to get to that mark. Beyond that, definitely growth rate will go down in any economic perspective. Yeah. And then, if we go by even 5%, we'll be able to attain that. So that is the basis. And why are we saying that? We're saying that because we still have a large area of unexplored economic potential and opportunities, which comes from so many resources that we have, which we haven't yet even taken advantage of. We have oil,
But we have
bauxite, aluminium, we have iron and steel. And technically, see, now we're doing car assembly. That is one phase. Car assembly moves
Which, by the way, the NDC wants to reverse.
Car assembly moves to
that.
Yeah, and you have a manifesto promise that says that
it's in the long term. It's in the long term.
Manifesto
it's
promise
a long term.
that says that one of the pillars of that particular policy was the scrapping of importation of used cars.
I think
you want to reverse that.
You are getting that wrong. We are not reversing. You see, we are saying that we would encourage local manufacturing. I mean, we are looking at the Swames of this world. We are looking at them. Empowering the Abusoka. People are they're producing their own vehicles locally. Malaysia does that. Many countries do that. We want companies to assemble cars here, but we want to encourage local production, like we started some years ago.
That's not exactly what you're doing. What you said is
no.
That
I was a member of the manifesto.
I know, but the wording of the manifesto is that the current policy where the importation of used cars is going to be banned. You are on rolling back that policy. You're going to allow used cars to come in.
No, I think we didn't say used cars. The issue wasn't about used cars.
No, but that's
salvage.
You know, yeah, but
the nomenclature should be accurate.
I get it.
Yeah.
But that's not a substance. Let's get down to.
Once you go to car assembly, the next one we're looking at, and in the long term, is to have manufacture cars here. What are the basic raw material for manufacturing of cars? Aluminium and steel. And these are the products that we have here. So if we begin to identify how we're going to explore judiciously these resources, that is what to serve as the key market base. The key market base will be the car manufacturing. And these are the two raw materials we need for that. The additional one is skill. And that is where you have to also identify the human resource that is required, especially in the areas that we're talking about. And I'm happy is the Ghana talking about technology development, TVET, and everywhere. These are the areas which are required. If we're able to do that, we create one stream of a production line. And if we're able to do that for even just targeting the West African market, that will give us a new dimension altogether in terms of productivity. And there are so many key examples that have been traced in this long-term indicative framework, which gives you the areas of targeting, and all these things have been shown. So the nominal GDP, we have structural transformation, stable economic environment, the issue of savings. Even if we're able to increase our national savings between 25 to 35%, massive. So
government should have a target. If don't do anything at all, have a target to achieve a GDP of not less than 5% every year. I mean, you might be getting there. My final question, this is a bullet one, is so fundamentally what you're telling me is you want to move Ghana from third world to first world in 30 what years?
That is it.
30 what years?
In 37 years. 37 and years. We can do it. There is history of it. In South Korea, in Malaysia, in so many places that we can talk about. And surprisingly, these countries, alongside other African countries, are doing it. Tanzania, which comes nowhere near us in terms of the potential and everything, they came out with the first phase of a plan, Kukuta, to develop agriculture sector. They moved to Kilimo Kwanza to look beyond that agriculture into processing. And this has been phases. You have it in Rwanda, they did the same thing. And these are countries where relatively we're quite above them in terms of human capacity and all this.
Doc, that is doable?
Doable.
In 37 years?
Doable, absolutely.
Third world to first world in 37 years?
Absolutely. Malaysia did it, Korea did it in 25.
In one way, what would it take?
Commitment, consistency. Well, maybe these are two words.
Okay, well, that's fine. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. I'm grateful. I mean, we'll return to this because this is so fascinating and there's so much to to chew on this. 50,000, I would love to have that, by the way. Resilient, service-oriented, industrialized, and globally competitive economy. We're not even talking about continental competitiveness, global competitiveness. A business financial hub in West Africa, modernized agriculture, minimal income disparities, a big problem for us, robust pension schemes, affordable and diversified energy. Doomso is going to be, you probably will hear it again, effective, efficient, dynamic, inclusive. This is really milk and honey in 37 years. And we've heard what it would take to get there. We'll see When we get the political parties again, we'll get to push it a bit more to them. Now we'll probably have the two parties. Tomorrow they bring Manifesto Tracker, by the way. We're going to be talking about the agricultural sector. So we get to isolate some of the agricultural input here and put to them. Join me tomorrow. My name is Ndpc. Enjoy the rest of the evening.